Okay, welcome back. We're gonna do blue next. Again, check in the description for the list for the color that I'm doing in the video. So we're gonna start off with the non-creatures again. Ponder, Portent. It's very similar to Ponder. You look at the top 3 cards of target player's library, so you can use it on someone else. Shuffle that library or put those 3 cards back on top of it in any order. And at the beginning of the next turn, draw a card. So it's very similar. Brainstorm, Remand. Okay, so I chose to put a few counters in blue. Enough counters so aggro control was viable or control was viable, but not OP. So Remand, it counters, but it puts the spell back into the player's hand and you draw a card. Actual counterspell I chose to put in. Boomerrang, Mana Leak I chose to put in. You can see most of the counters that I put in don't just straight up counter the spell. Only a few do. Tell in Time, Complicate, counters unless the controller pays 3, or you can cycle it to counter unless they pay 1. Dream Cache, it draws you 3 cards and then you choose 2 cards from your hand and put both on either the top or the bottom of your library. So you can get rid of some cards in your hand that aren't very useful to you. Forbidden Alchemy, Compulsive Research. It's kind of like Thirst for Knowledge, except you have to discard a land and it's target player. It's also a sorcery. Thirst for Knowledge. Psionic Blast. For those who don't know what Psionic Blast does, is 4 damage to a creature, player, and 2 damage to you. So this card can be pretty good in if you're running Is It type deck. So if you're running red, blue, burn or something like that, this card's pretty strong. Cancel, Hinder. It counters a spell and you can choose to put it on the bottom or the top of that spell's controller's library. Encrust is basically blue removal, because Enchanted Permanent doesn't untap during its controller's untap step and its active abilities can't be played. Capsize is a recurable removal in blue. Concentrate, you just straight up draw 3 cards. And these are blue's way of dealing with a lot of creatures, because like I said, there's not really any board wipes in a Peasant Cube. So Sleep, you tap all creatures target players controls and they don't untap in the next untap step. Amass the Components, you draw 3 cards and then you put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. Washout's another way for blue to deal with a lot of creatures. Of course, you have to play this selectively in a limited format where everyone's probably playing at least 2 colors, but still, you control when you play it, so it's always going to be to your advantage. Fact or Fiction. Mind Control, why not? And finally, the second last removal spell, I believe. Vanishment. Put target non-land permanent on top of its owner's library. Honden for card drawing. And then Repeal, I think, is the last removal spell. And Condescend. And that would be the camera falling. Let me see if I can get this up and running, so I don't have to start over. Okay, so moving on to the creatures. Spiketail Hatchling. It's 2 for a 1/1 flyer, so it has evasion and you can sack it to counter a spell unless its controller pays 1. You never know when they won't have the 1, and like I said, it's a 1/1 flyer. Azure Mage. This guy can draw you. She can draw you some cards if she's left unchecked for too long. Same thing with Looter, il-Kor. It's 2 for a 1/1 with Shadow. And Merfolk Looter, same thing. Both these guys will draw you and discard card. So both of them loot. Aether Adept is removal on the form of a creature. So it's 3 for a 2/2 that bounces a creature. Latch Seeker has evasion, the best evasion, unblockable. Stormbound Geist, it's 3 for a 2/2. You can only block creatures with flying, but it also has Undying, so it's actually a pretty solid card. Wall of Frost, you'd probably see this more in a control build than an aggro build, but 3 for a 0/7 that keeps creatures tapped down is pretty solid. Neurok Commando, it's 2 for a, I keep saying the power, it's 3 for a 2/1 with Shroud, and when it deals combat damage to a player you may draw a card. Prodigal Sorcerer, it's burn in red. Archaeomancer, you get to return an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. Phantasmal Dragon, now this is where blue gets to look a little strong. This is 4 for a 5/5 flyer, but when it becomes the target of a spell or ability you have to sacrifice it. The way I look at this card, especially in this cube, is with the exception of burn, if a removal spell is going to target this card, it was going to die anyways. So it's worth the risk of playing this guy. If you draft this, if you make this cube or a similar cube, play this card. 4 for a 5/5 flyer, like I said, most times the removal spell would have killed it anyways, with the exception of burn. So there's no reason not to. If it's left unchecked even for 2 turns, it's a problem. Ninja of the Deep Hours, more ways to draw cards. Mist Raven, again it's removal in the form of a creature, because it's 4 for a 2/2 flyer that bounces a creature when it comes into play. Fledgling Maw-Core, it's 4 for a 2/2 flyer that taps to do damage to a creature or player. It also has Morph, so this is actually a pretty solid card for those who've never seen it before. Living Tsunami, again this is where some of the blue creatures shine. It's 4 mana for a 4/4 fire. The only drawback is at the beginning of your upkeep you have to sacrifice it unless you return a land you control to its owner's hand. So if you don't play this 4th turn, you played say 6th turn, and you don't actually need any more lands, you'll just stay at 6 lands for the rest of the game as long as this is alive, because you'll keep bouncing the land, and you'll keep playing that land every turn, every time it's your turn, and you'll have a 4/4 flyer. Nevermaker, when it comes into play you can put a non-land permanent on top of its owner's library, and it's 4 for a 2/3 flyer. It also has Evoke, so you can just pay 4 mana to put something on top of its owner's library. Thieving Magpie, or P, however you want to pronounce it. It's 4 mana for a 1/3 flyer, and when it deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. Just a really solid card, and good card advantage. Air Elemental, another 4/4 flyer in blue. That's all this one does, though. And that's the camera again. I really don't want to start this video over, so I'm gonna try to finish it off here. Muldrifter, 5 mana 2/2 flyer, draws you 2 cards when it comes into play. Murder of Crows, really good card in this cube. I think it was actually a really good card too when people used to draft it in general in Limited. So it's 5 mana for a 4/4 flyer, and whenever another creature dies, you may draw a card, and if you do, you discard a card. It being a 4/4 flyer is just so relevant. And the final creature is Jedin Glasskite. It's 6 mana for a 4/4 flyer, and it has that ability that whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability for the first time in a turn, you counter that spell or ability. So it's just really hard to deal with in cube where in a peasant cube where it's a lot of 1-for-1 spells. Thanks for watching. Next I think I'm going to do artifacts, so see you in the next video.